My name is Brooks Anderson. I'm a longtime Duluth peace activist. And some of us have been working on a project, I would say in recent years, but we're hoping that it's coming to a head now. Uh, and it goes under the name Duluth, the Peacemaking City. And we're saying we have a story to tell, a big story to tell. And that is that we've done some incredible things. And that gives us a new identity. The way we tell a story is to do a walk, and we call it the Peacemaking Walk. But behind that is the idea that Duluth is on its way to being a very important peacemaking city. This walk has 7 or 8 stops, and it's just off the lake walk, and it's on a raised platform park that's over the freeway. It used to be called Lake Place Park, and now it's Gitche O'Day Akin. And that's important, and we'll come back to it. So let's start this walk. And it's a virtual walk, so we can start wherever we want to. Right at the heart of this park is and this will be stop number 7, but we'll start there anyway. And it's called the Arising, many hands lifting the dove of peace. And we would say that that's a defining centerpiece for our city. This is describing the personality of our city. And many people doing many kinds of tasks, but all centering on a peacemaking mission. So that's our starting place. So all of these stories that I'm going to be telling, they all sort of say, we did something 50 years ago, we did something 30 years ago, we did something 15 years ago. And because that happened, because of the citizens' initiative, Duluth is a different place. So we'll start the walk. And stop number 1 is along the lake walk. We would have the choice of going up over the top of this park or along the lake walk, where we come to a series of 3 memorials. One is to the Korean War, the other is to the Vietnam War, and in between is an anchor of the USS Duluth. These 2 wars produced a lot of peacemaking. We have a very active chapter in Duluth of Veterans for Peace. Each of these memorials is, I would say, a la the Vietnam Wall in DC. It is a place to read names and honor the people who have died in these wars. And I think very respectful kinds of monuments. I think this first stop is in some ways the most important one. We need to find ways that more such memorials don't need to be created. It seems like we are perpetually at war, and something must be done about that. Rather than focus on either of these memorials, I'd like to stop between at this anchor and tell a story. When Governor Carlson was leaving office in, I think, 1999, he wanted to leave a legacy of honoring veterans, and he proposed that the USS Des Moines, a heavy cruiser, I believe it was, be stationed in the Duluth Harbor as a memorial. And everybody seemed to want it. The Chamber of Commerce wanted it, the mayor wanted it, lots of downtown people wanted it. But there were many who opposed it, and so that conversation went on. There came a time when there was an important vote to be taken by the city council, and the council was divided on the issue. And that vote, I think, would have been in '99. And Tom Morgan organized a group of combat veterans, most of them high-profile people that you knew leaders in the community, but you didn't know them as veterans. And he persuaded them to come and tell their story. And it was a dramatic evening, and people would say would tell their stories, maybe World War II, maybe Vietnam, and talk about the gruesome things they had experienced, and said, "Don't do this in my name. Please don't do this in my name." I remember one man saying, I fought in World War II, and I'll tell you some of the ugliness I saw. He said, but I didn't do that so that I could drive over the hill into this city I love and see a large worship in our bay. And another line I remember is, don't do anything that glorifies war. And the vote was against supporting this. And I suspect that was a key part of the reason we don't have the Des Moines in our harbor. And you can say, and Duluth is a very different place because of that. Stop number 2 would be just up the ramp a little bit, where there are, I think, 4 different sister city monuments. We have 5 sister cities. And so we organized what we called the Soviet Sister City Project. We did a lot of educating of ourselves and looking for a potential sister city and ways to proceed with this. And in 1986, we had picked Petrozavodsk and put together a first delegation of 31 people, a big cross-section of the city. And said, we will go to Petrozavodsk and we will ask them to be our sister city. And we went there, and it was a very powerful experience. And I very much had the sense then, Duluth will never be the same because of this. And hundreds of people have been impacted by that relationship. And it has been very powerful and continues to this day. There are those kind of stories in all of our sister city relationship. In fact, one of the places you ought to go to really experience the power of our relationship with Ohara Otsumi City would be up to near Anger Tower, the Peace Garden up there. And there you get a feel for how much that means to them, how much they've put into this memorial. We had a sister city delegation here from Ohara not too long ago, and they took this peace walk that we are now doing virtually, and it felt really powerful. And I think maybe it was the beginning of a conversation with them. We've also done that peace walk with a Swedish delegation from Växjö, and in that case, they openly said, we need to go home and do the same thing. We need to find a way to make this sister city relationship a stronger peacemaking venture. And so that's stop number 2. And I say there could be dozens and dozens of stories of people whose lives have been impacted by a visit. I hope we can make that a part of the future, that we talk about how can this 5-way relationship, how can we together be stronger as peacemakers? So that's stop number 2. Number 3, we'll just sort of walk by. There's a sunken area up on the top, and that's the place that a year and a half ago, the place was renamed Gitche Ode Aki. And that's the time when the Native American community said, this whole area is important to us. This used to be the little portage. This is sacred ground. And that lake we're looking at over is a powerful spiritual force. That's how the importance of this name. And now our Native friends are saying to us, we're ready to be more visible. We're ready to engage a conversation, and hope that conversation, and expect it will include peacemaking. Number 4, we leave the park for a little bit, and we go out to Superior Street, down to the end of the street, and there is the Building for Nonviolence. And in that is the Domestic Abuse Intervention Program. We walk up 2 flights of stairs, and we sit in their training room, and that training room looks out over the park that we have just walked through and we'll be going back to. And that's a dramatic story. In fact, that's the place where this idea that we have a story to tell and we better be telling it. We are big news all over the world. This innovative program of an integrated way to deal with the scourge of domestic violence. Thousands of people have sat in that training room and learn about the Duluth model. Thousands of people have taken trainings in other cities. So it's known all over the world as one of the beginning places where we really addressed this huge problem. We'll go back down those 2 flights of stairs, across Superior Street, and up to First Street and the Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial. And there again, Duluth was innovated. This is the first such memorial, a memorial to a lynching. And 100 years ago, 3 young Black men were lynched for false charges brought against them. A very ugly stain on the life of Duluth, but one we have faced, and dealt with. 91, Craig Grau, university professor, discovered that these men were buried without any marker at Park Hill Cemetery and arranged for a marker to be given. We had a book written about that. Michael Fido wrote a book, and soon it was picked up by the NAACP, and with great leadership, they raised money, and this, I believe the monument was in 2003. It was correct. Anyway, about that, we have a monument, and it was the first such monument in the United States. There are other placards and markers. Lynching was just a tool of suppression, and we, in recent days, are discovering nationally, we're discovering how deep racism runs. But Duluth has been working on that in recent years, and has this place. And now that's a story we need to be telling to ourselves and to the world. We've got a story to tell, and in this day of Black Lives Matter, we maybe at least have a little bit of a lead in understanding that racism runs very, very deep, and we ought to understanding into the life of our city. Okay, now we would come back, and we come back to the park, and maybe make a swing by the city jail where these men were hauled out of to be hanged, and come back into the park and go very close to where we started. We started at the Arising statue. Right next to it is another peace bell, and this is a peace bell that is a part of the anti-gun violence movement. And we have a very dynamic program in Duluth because of 2 very dynamic women who had experienced deep personal tragedy through gun violence, Mary Strufert and Joan Peterson. Their passion, their charisma, and just unceasing work in this area has put Duluth on the map for many people on this issue. It's they have ceremonies there where the bell is rung naming the people who have died from gun violence. And now we're back to number 7, which is the Arising statue. And I said we think that depicts the personality of our city, but it's many hands and many different programs that all come together. And It's a time when I like to quote Martin Luther King. Exactly 1 year before he died, April 4th, 1967, uh, he gave one of the most important and I think the most neglected speeches of his illustrious life and career. And it was called Beyond Vietnam. For many of us, that talk helped us make connections. He talked about the giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism. And I think had King been alive for many more years, he would have added some of the other ugly isms. But particularly, he brought into our vocabulary the word militarism and said we ought to be saying that word and acknowledging that we have become very militaristic. And, put that together with the things we've experienced on the walk, gun violence, racial violence, domestic violence, and war making. They're all one issue. They're all a part of a culture of violence. And we have to go at that maybe one city at a time, one issue at a time, and continue to raise the issue, but not be afraid to speak the word militarism. We said in our first visit to the war monuments that's maybe the most important. If we don't bring that phrase, that word into our language, we're not really dealing with the issue. Just beyond where the rising statue is, there's a place called the Sister City Park, and it's really designed to be a contemplative place, a place to sit and maybe we ought to do that. We ought to go to that place and sit and contemplate what we've just experienced, and then try to vision a new kind of world. And how can we get there? What do we need to do to become a place that really confronts the culture of violence and makes us a peacemaking people? I think that's our task, is to vision a new kind of world and then decide to go to work to make it happen. Thank you.